So you spent over 5 years closing new business at Sprinklr, and you were a
Yeah.
top 10 AE in company history. Like, what made you so successful as an AE, and why did customers buy from you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really two key things. One, it's all about champion building. I realized that early. We used to have a stat at Sprinkle or something along the lines of like more than half the people that led the purchase of Sprinkle were promoted within 12 months. So to me, it's the always identifying a personal win for somebody, whether it's to make their job easier or it's, hey, they're seeking recognition or their career advancement or some combination of all the three. Like building champions is everything. And I think the reason that folks bought from me is I'm always really proud of I always sold the right deal. Was I always like the top dog on the scoreboard? Probably not actually. I had a lot of folks, a lot of colleagues who tremendous sales professionals and just absolutely blew their numbers out of the water. But I don't know if they always sold the right deal. What I was really proud of is I think I did, I don't know, 50 or 60 logos in my 5 years, and nearly all of them were still clients when I left, even 5 years after that. So I was never about the short-term win, putting like money in my pocket. It was more about how do I go sell the right deal? How do I go solve the right problem for the customer that they're trying to solve now, prove value, and then in 6, 12, 18 months, they're growing with us and expanding versus trying to resell and save the thing that we oversold.
And who was the champion at Sprinkler? Was it like a social media manager? Was it a VP of marketing? Did it change depending on who you're talking to? Like who, as
Yeah.
you're trying to set meetings with people and find champions at companies, who were you reaching out to?
I mean, in the early days, the title of social, was did that even exist? Sometimes not. So yeah, many times it was a VP of marketing was probably the most common title. And then certainly as time went on, it was a director of social because most of them didn't have VP titles. And then as organizations became really hip to it and really understanding the power of social, it certainly morphed over time. The other would be as time went on, it was someone in care. So you'd get into these meetings and oftentimes you'd remember early days, especially it would morph social, like the social marketing folks in care. There was the social, one of the first times those two groups were brought together. They need to do something instantaneous. And that's actually a lot of what drove Sprinklr in its early days.
Gotcha. When you say care, it's like people writing on social for customer support requests and things like that. And then you got to figure out, okay, how do I actually follow up with this customer? Because there's a whole new channel you got to manage outside of just like your email support thing. Yeah.
That's exactly it. But marketing owned those channels, right? So marketing owned it. And they're like, oh, I got to solve this. How do I get this? I have to take a screenshot, drop an email, send it to customer support. And then it kind of goes back and they just go ping pong back and forth as opposed to saying, let me just do this in the system. That's where we would explain a lot of the pipes and plumbing analogies. And that's where it really started to connect for people. And that was really the first key use case that we found huge utility in. I know I wasn't expecting that per se, but it was big.
And how were you able to kind of get on the same side as your champion and not come across as like salesy or trying to sell them something? Like, was it like, how were you able to understand their problems? Were you building roadmaps with them? Like, what were you doing with them that kind of made you such a trusted partner?
I mean, I've been in a leadership role now for a handful of years, and I think it goes to the same thing that I look for in the folks that I recruit is the number one trait, I think, is curiosity. So if you're in the room with somebody and you're just trying to throw features and functions at them, I don't think that holds water. But I think if you have some natural curiosity and you ask the right questions to genuinely, and by the way, you show a genuine care for the problem they're seeking to solve, and more importantly, why and with what benefit or outcome, I think that drives a lot of that relationship. And for why some of these folks will go run through a wall to go get things done on behalf of the sales professionals they work with.
And you eventually became a sales leader at Sprinklr. I'd love to know, like, what was the hardest part of that transition from AE to manager?
Yeah. So the SVP at the time that was a couple levels above me promoted me. He said, Jason, he goes, you're going to be the sales leader, but you're not really going to be the leader. You'll just be the manager. He's like, he's like, you'll see. It'll take you a little while to learn how to lead properly. For now, you'll just manage the number more than anything. So I was fortunate that I was already the de facto go-to for my peers. So I see a lot of folks who get promoted for the first time and now they're responsible for their peers, and that's a challenge. But I was fortunate that wasn't challenge for me. But I'll tell you one funny story about first time leader, and I'm being a first time leader, and I was that energy, and definitely no one will ever accuse me of not having energy. And I remember on Sunday nights, I've never gotten the Sunday scaries, but Sunday nights I'd send this recap email. Hey, here's the recap from the prior week. Here's a look at the week ahead. And one Sunday night, I'm sending an email, and I hit send at, I call it 9:50 Eastern on this note. I walk in. This is pre-COVID. Walk back into the office. My whole team's there for the Monday morning meeting, and one guy, he looks at me. He goes, Jason. He goes, do you watch Game of Thrones? This is the height of it. I go, no. He goes, well, you sent an email in the last 10 minutes of the series finale of Game of Thrones. And he's like, this guy better have something important to say, or I'm going to kill him. So I was like, you know what? I learned my lesson, and I definitely do not do that anymore. The send it later button or Slack later button is my best friend.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm not like the biggest sports fan. I like sports, but I'm not the biggest. And so there's sometimes I'm like doing work while big sports things on it. I'm like, yeah, I maybe shouldn't send this email during the World Series. People probably care more about that than whatever stupid thing I'm emailing them.